Dr. Clark,
No, William is the name. Thank you.
All right, William. All right, welcome to Endeavor BS, where the Endeavor stands for the Endeavor, the BS. Sorry, we've been drinking already. The BS stands for Brewing and Spirits, because what else could BS possibly stand for?
Who knows?
Yeah. So we're joined today with Dr. William Clark, or William, who is one of our more interesting regulars. So just so you know, the microphone you need to keep pretty close to your mouth. And today we are talking
about music and beer.
Music and beer.
The best things.
The best things.
All the best things.
that you can do with your clothes on. Or off. I mean,
well, there's skydiving.
There's skydiving.
But, you know, that only lasts like 2 minutes and takes a couple days to process. Personal experience.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm like, do I make the sex joke here too? So, gosh, yeah. So I don't know. Do we like go around and talk about?
My interesting thing, what I'd like to get into is the fact that I know a decent amount about you and a little bit about your music preferences. However, you, sir, you're a mystery.
That's right. I told Sean, like Sean and I were talking about like we should have a third person on. Who's it going to be? Who could we get? I'm like, oh, Dr. Clark.
So give me a little background on yourself and sort of your music interest and just, anything that just, stories you have or where you grew up, where those influences come from, and then I'll give you a little background on me and we can start digging into the music that we drink beer to.
Well, I grew up in darkest South London, and I was a teenager in the 60s. So, and all this was starting to happen. And it's actually a fascinating transition from music of the 50s and 60s into the sudden explosion of pop music. I could talk about that, give a lecture to a music class about London and Liverpool in that time. But essentially, what happened in London is all these clubs sort of sprung up. They were there already, because all these bands in London, they were dance bands, and that's what they played. They played gigs on a Saturday night for crowds to dance to. So that's why, if you listen to the British bands, they're all very heavily, they're the classic, bass, rhythm, lead, maybe keyboard and a bit of the format, but they were there playing dance music. If you can play dance music, you didn't go anywhere because nobody's going to go listen to it. So there were these clubs, and where I grew up in Croydon, there was essentially a pub down the middle of Croydon called the Star, and the Star had a little room at the back, probably not much bigger than this, and they would have a band there on a Saturday night. And there was a guy who was some kind of European immigrant called Giorgio Gamelski. You might have heard of him. And he started a club up in Richmond, further up in London, that started in a station house pub, and then actually moved under the stands of a rugby ground, the Richmond Athletic Ground. And that became it was called the Crawdaddy Club, the famous Crawdaddy Club. And he also managed or had the rights to this Star Pub in Croydon. So he had two bands, and his lead band would be in the Crawdaddy Club. And most of the time, in those days, that was the Rolling Stones coming up.
That's awesome.
And the second band, when I was a kid, we'd go on Saturday night for like 50 cents. The second band was the Yardbirds.
Of course it was.
With Eric Clapton.
Yep.
And eventually, the Rolling Stones eventually moved out and went on bigger things. And then the Yardbirds moved up to the Crawdaddy Club and so on. So the succession. And these bands were everywhere. And then, when I went to university, I went to university in Liverpool, which, was an interesting city. Liverpool was economically, it was a very depressed city because it had been the major port of the British Empire, and all kinds of there were auto industries and everything, and those things had gone into decline.
So sort of like Detroit in America, in sort of a historic way, but a lot of music that came out of there that was influential.
A lot more fun than Detroit. People were a lot nicer, and so there were two huge things in Liverpool, which sort of lifted the whole city. And number one was the music scene, I know the Beatles, and you can go to the Beatles and Jerry and the Pacemakers and Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas. I mean, just group after group after group after group. Because again, kids that age, high unemployment, that's what they did. They got together in bands and took a shot at maybe making it that way. That was number one. And of course, the other big thing was Liverpool Football Club, which were coming to dominate the British League and also starting to dominate Europe. And so these two you had this odd sort of paradox of this depressed city, but still a city with great personality, and then these two huge things, a worldwide phenomenon. So that's what we did. So as this undergraduate Liverpool, they would have dances in the student union main hall on a Saturday night. You go for 50 cents. And that in those days was what the groups did. Those were the big venues for the groups. So, you saw, Pink Floyd, with all their, back in the days when they had the psychedelic oil and water, 35 millimeter projections.
Those are still fun.
Those are still fun.
I played a couple different psych fests where you had a visual artist doing that over those shows the whole time. So I always thought that was cool. That was nostalgic to me to walk in to when they used to do, and they still probably will continue this, but Mas Bagua, the band behind Psychfest in Columbus, I've played a couple different times, and every time the venue's gotten better, the crowds and everything is built up, but they always have this visual artist for a while that does that classic feel. So you walk in and you feel like you're in
psychedelia. Yeah,
exactly. It's a nostalgic trip.
So I saw them at the Who. I mean, the Who are famous for playing student unions. I mean, the Who live at Leeds was in the student union at Leeds University, so we saw them. Oh, I mean, you name them. They would, of course, the Liverpool groups would play them.
And let me ask you a question. I mean, being especially Liverpool city and the soccer city and so forth. What were you there long enough for that transition from the growth of the Rolling Stones in the late 50s through 60s and the Beatles and so forth to what became the rise of punk?
No, not really. I was there like 68 to 72.
Gotcha.
So it very much
would have been a couple of, like 6 years later before the punk start hit.
Peak of it was the sort of tail end of the Beatles era, because the Beatles went from like 62 to 69, 70. That was as far as then. That was the last one. So I remember them doing the Get Back video on the top of the Apple headquarters in Savile Row in London, and that was why I was there. So, but then all the other groups were still rolling.
You were there when they did?
No, I remember seeing it on TV. Okay. But then the other groups were rolling along behind. The Rolling Stones were picking up momentum, Led Zeppelin, and all those. So no, we were still very much an area, and punk stuff didn't come along till as far as I remember, mid-late 70s.
Correct. Yeah. But so another interesting thought, just because you know so many bands in that region this might have come across your plate, just out of interest. Have you ever heard of the Italian band Sensations Fix?
Yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah, they've done much.
That a big influence on me. I'm a big prog rock person. I got to play with Franco.
Oh, really?
In Sensations Fix in Columbus. He stayed at my house for a week.
Oh, man.
Told me, and he played with Zeppelin and the Stones and Pink Floyd, and he had stories about all of them. It was one of the best weeks I ever had to spend with a musician. Like it was.
So real quick. So we've talked a bit about Dr. Clark or William's background. Sean, let's for all the folks. So Sean, for all the folks at home,
get your DJ voice going.
Yeah. We were practicing our DJ voices earlier. Welcome to Endeavor BS. This is Cameron Lloyd coming.
Killing it.
So, Sean?
So a little bit about me.
Yeah.
Sean is at Endeavor. You are
Endeavor,
man of many hats.
Man of many hats. Mainly I'm in the market. I sell beer and liquor, but I like to help out here wherever I can. And I love learning, and I love the science of it. So and
you can't get away from here.
No, and I can't. They just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back. But so I've been a musician for Well, it's weird to say that now. It's been 23 years since I really started to focus on an instrument. I have a degree in music composition from University of Colorado Boulder.
Oh, yeah.
I have played off and on with a band that I'll probably never be able to replace for the past 12 years called Golden Death Music. So I played, it's progressive rock. If you like Pink Floyd, you will like this. So I did play in town off and on for a while, CD 1025, got a lot of good relationships, have like 9 albums or 10 or so on Spotify. And then I owned a record store off of 3rd Avenue called Strange Loop Records for a little over 4 years with my business partner, Evan McCullen. And so I have a ridiculous vinyl collection and obviously a encyclopedic knowledge of music. So I absolutely love talking to you, and I'm excited to hear some stories as well. But if you want, anytime after this, I'll let you borrow that Sensei. I have Finest Finger on vinyl, a signed copy because Franco stayed with me. So if you want to bum that and listen to some Stations Fix, I will be happy to lend it to you, because that you cannot find that vinyl in America anymore.
Man. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize your background was that.
Music has been my life.
Good. Good. Yeah.
The beer and the people and the science in this industry, it all just sort of works well for sort of my brain. Yeah. So I feel like I fit in here.
Yeah. Nice. I think the most I can do up through college, I did a lot of singing. I always did like choir and vocal jazz stuff.
We're gonna drag you out then to karaoke.
I know. Like I'm when I was living in Berlin, I also do a lot of dancing. Like I taught dance and stuff like that. So my music taste goes a lot with dancing too.
Let's get into that background, because I find that fascinating about you. It's one of those hidden talents you learn about somebody and you're like, what? Oh, wait, so he's a master brewer, a scientist, and he's a professional dancer.
Professional's a bit strong. I mean, I've gotten paid to like teach lessons and stuff. To me, that's like, I don't know, like,
hey,
professional.
That's professional. That's definition.
I just grew up dancing, got big into that in high school, college. Went on from there. I've taught dancing, do all like social dances. So, like swing, Lindy Hop, and got into West Coast swing and weird like fusion groove stuff, blues.
Pardon my ignorance. What is Lindy Hop?
So there are like a bunch of different swing dances. Okay, Lindy Hop is like the big, when people imagine swing, like Hell's a Poppin', like
your jump job, you're swinging people through the legs.
Yeah, that's Lindy Hop. Although like actually throwing people up in the air when you're actually like in a place with regular people around, like throw air, lifts and stuff are generally highly shunned when you're actually in a social setting. Like I've met like 2 people who are like, yeah, it's cool if they do lifts.
But you could outdo Kevin Bacon in Footloose. I've seen you dance.
Okay, if you say so.
I think so.
And then like Argentine tango and things like that as well. So like
that's awesome to me. I want to learn to tango like a pro. I would love to. So one of these days.
For music performance, I think like the biggest like my biggest thing that happened. One of the people, like when I was in college, I was in like the second level down vocal jazz ensemble, not like the elite one with all the music majors. It was all the non-music majors, which weirdly, ours was the group that actually had somebody like go on to become a professional musician. And she went on to be like women's world beatboxing champion and like went on like America's Got Talent or stuff like that. And she's performed with Wayne Brady and all this crazy stuff. Which is kind of one of those cool stories of somebody who like you think of talent and she's like, she was like me. She wasn't in that top group because she's naturally got a beautiful voice or anything like that. She just worked so hard and she became an incredible beatboxer. She was the first person I ever heard like sing while beatboxing.
I feel like it's the difference between that creative, like that's that person that didn't get recognized for how brilliant they were, because the people that are looking at that level of schooling are really refined to a specific area. And if you don't fit in that category and you can do something more or do something different or do something better, those are the people that,
well, I mean, it's like,
where did they come from?
And where the music program at California State University, Sacramento is not going to have a department that like is going to talk about beatboxing. Like there was nobody at the school who was going to like, okay, we have nothing to teach you about this. You obviously know more about this than anyone else here.
So I don't remember where David Byrne went to college, somewhere on the East Coast. But David Byrne got started. He had his stick in school, and he was like,
they were all like art school people.
Yeah, he used to play a violin with like a pigeon or something balancing on the end of his bow. Yeah, and that was right. Have you heard that story?
Yeah. Read his book. Yeah.
And to bring it back to beer, I have named in the past. I've named a pilot brew in her honor. Like I brewed a Bock and I called it Beatbox.
Oh, hey, look at you.
There you go.
That's nice. I hope she somehow hears this at some point.
So shout her. She goes by the stage name Butterscotch, which like it was sort of a caramely like buttery toffee like beer.
When she gets her first Grammy, we'll get the endorsement.
Yeah. Obviously.
We'll have to do a butterscotch.
Yeah. So if we want to move on, we didn't even tell William about our plan to bring in records. He just knew what everything was about.
I picked a few up. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
so
awesome.
we've got a little game that Sean and I were like, what are we gonna do? Oh, we're gonna pair beer with music. Yeah. So
this started. The idea really, not that I'm stealing it from Dogfish Head, but I love the fact that Dogfish Head, the brewery, put out multiple record store day albums. So that's something we'll get into a little bit later, is just the record store day, what's coming up this year, some things that are on our radar, something fun to mention. But Dogfish Head put out a Music to Drink Beer To vinyl when I owned my record store. And I was like, oh, that's great. Maybe it was, say, 2000, circa 15, 16 when they put that out. And I was like, this is fun. I bought it. I have it. And I'm like, well, I think we can do better. I'm pretty sure that we can do better. So we wanted to talk about some music to drink beer to, and I challenged Cameron with the idea and myself, and this was very hard to whittle down, but a little bit of matching our beers that we have laid right behind you here with a song or album that we think fits that for us. And a little bit about why and maybe the artist. It'd just be a fun thing to talk about.
So we've got them lined up. So we'll start with the Altura Latin Lager. So this is this beer is near and dear to my heart. This was the first beer that, like, when we were coming up with Endeavor, that Scott, Tyler, and I, like, we had the idea for this beer before we had a name for the brewing company. Like, this was about the first after, like, okay, we're going to start a brewing company. This was the first thing we came up with. So people ask what makes it Latin. It's sort of Mexican style-ish, but there's a lot more to Latin America than just Mexico. We found the grain from Patagonia and Chile, so that was like Latin America, but not Mexican.
And I like the historic context of the flake corn.
And we used flake corn in that, which I was actually like, that was one of the things I was resistant to. I was the one personally resistant to that. Like, Tyler was pushing for the corn.
It does make it makes it unique amongst any other Pilsner, because anything that finishes nice and bright for those, like this has that brightness, but you get that like lingering back end, which makes it's a signature. And it's hard to replace. If I want that beer and I go get another beer, it doesn't fit the bill. So you screwed me on this. You Orson Welles me on Pilsners.
The very first beer we brewed was a Pilsner predecessor to this. It was basically this recipe without the corn. And then
you tried it,
and then the next time we did it, we tried it with the corn. And like, wow, I'm sold. This was good. So you got that sweet corn tortilla flavor. We've got the lime zest. Wonderful crushable beer. So, Sean, what did you pick?
You're going with me first. All right.
I can go first. No,
I'll go first. I'll take this one. So the Latin Lager is my go-to beer here. It makes me think of you, and when I think of this place, like, that is the first thing that comes to mind. That can, that's our first can art we finalized and got together. And sitting through all of that process, I have a little bit of heart to that beer. So I brought something that has a lot of heart to me.
Okay.
And this band, I've met them.
And it's not heart.
They're out of Cincinnati.
Okay.
They're originally from Cincinnati, I should say. So they're Ohioans, but they've lived in New York. Most people, if you look them up, they're a New York band, you know?
Okay.
That's where they got famous. But they didn't get famous till like their 6th album. Nobody, I feel like throughout college, I loved them and no one ever knew who they were. Now everyone knows who they are. This is a band called The National. Are you familiar with them?
I'm not.
Are you a Leonard Cohen fan?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
The closest thing you can get to modern Leonard Cohen is this band. Lyrically and actually, their whole instrumental build is very just directly influenced by Leonard Cohen. And the song that I would drink that beer to is "Baby Will Be Fine," which I'm not even going to go into the levels of what that song has brought to my life, but the nostalgia and the care that I have for that, and my love for Leonard Cohen, amazing lyricist, amazing songwriter, fits into that and brings something I feel unique to be able to share with people. So this, I think, is their first real breakthrough album that made people know who they are. And now that everybody's rather familiar with them, they're super popular. I brought The National Alligator. My song for the Altura Latin Lager is "Baby Will Be Fine."
All right. Dr. Clark, do you have
Well,
anything?
you're going to spring this one
Or
on me,
if,
right?
if you need some time, you
no
can think
warning.
about it.
I guess we didn't tell you
We didn't
the
tell
game.
you.
You
We'll
did not. I'm going to make sure everybody watching, all the thousands of people out there watching, know that this.
both
know about
of our
this.
viewers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. That kind of has a little Latin American feel and something out of that kind of era and time. I'm just thinking what would go with that. I hate to go back to Herb Alpert or something, but you know.
Hey, Whipped Cream and Other Delights is still one of the best album covers. In fact, at my store, no matter how many copies of that, you had high school kids coming and buying it. Yeah. They had to have that album on their wall.
For all the right reasons, right?
Exactly right. In fact, one of our best cocktails, our most overlooked cocktails that we make at this brewery is Herb Alpert.
That is my favorite cocktail here. The Herb
phenomenal.
Alpert is so good.
Yeah. It's a Oaxaca, or I guess I should
Mezcal?
say mezcal-based cocktail.
Yeah.
We use Oaxaca.
You know, I would think something along those lines. You know, a little, I don't know, maybe something little Mexican, South American, maybe a little mariachi or something would go with that nicely.
I almost grabbed Bugarins, which is a band from Brazil, not Chile, but anyway, it was more so about the feel of the beer for me than the location for this one. I do put a region to a couple of these. You'll see.
Yeah.
So mine. So what a lot of people don't appreciate with Pilsners is that they're very, very technical beers. So this beer is a me showing off. This is my epitome of my philosophy of the best beers reward attention but don't demand it. Like you drink it, it's just like it's whatever. If
you have off flavors, you're gonna taste them.
You know, so you've got to be.
This is you pulling.
It's got to be
back
perfect. It's got to be impeccable. So for a band that their albums are perfect and impeccable, I had to go with Steely Dan.
Sure.
And I don't have the song that I have in mind is not on this album. This is just the only Steely Dan album I have.
It's cool that you brought it.
It's a great album. So this album, Steely Dan Asia, but the song that I have in mind for this specifically is Ricky, Don't Lose That Number.
Oh yeah.
Ricky, don't lose that number. You don't want to call nobody else. Also because it's got a nice little Latin. It's got the Latin vibe going, and it's bright. It's fun. It sounds like a pop song. It is a pop song, but then you get to those weird chord changes, and if you know music, you're like, wait, what's going on here? This is not a regular pop song.
The great writing that you have from Steely. The reason that people will tell you, you'll appreciate Steely Dan when you're older. I'm not going into this.
I mean, we were talking about this, and I'm like, do you have that album? I'm like, It's like, and that's the one Steely Dan album that you like don't have, and then you admitted you're not that into Steely Dan. But like, you're a musician, aren't you legally required to like Steely Dan?
I respect Steely Dan, and I understand why people like him. But for all my life, people have been like, "Oh, you'll love Steely Dan at some point." That's how I feel like when I talk to my friends in high school about Bob Dylan. I'm like, "Okay, you guys will learn." Yeah. I like Steely Dan. I've never loved Steely Dan.
That's fine.
But I understand. I love your choice on that. I love your thought.
And
to it.
and the same thing, like the Latin lager doesn't have to be your favorite beer. You don't have to love the Latin lager. But if you know beer,
then there you go. Boom. Well done, sir.
I thought for a minute there when you started talking about things technical, you were going to go with Devo or something.
I so wanted to do Devo or something.
I'm going to tie this back to Devo by the end. Don't you worry.
Yes.
Don't you worry, my friend.
Ohio Proud.
Yeah, Ohio Proud. That's right. I can't wait to mention my Devo play in this. It has. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Devo or Thomas Dolby, you know.
We will get to our next beer here, which is our Hefeweizen.
Yeah.
The Landhaus. Which will give us a little background on the imagery that came, because that was your influence mainly.
Yeah, because so few of these are my influence. Actually, this is my biggest influence.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, it's funny because like this is, I mean, I hate to be like, this is probably one of my least favorite beers. This is one of my less loved beers here. We've got enough beers, like, you know. But I've got my favorites. This is not one of my favorites.
But that's a true Hefeweizen.
But it's a true Hefeweizen. Yeah. Oh gosh. So I went to brewing school in Germany, in Berlin, and so like studying brewing in Germany, I have strong feelings about German beer and like what makes certain German styles what they are specific things that I wanted to be true to. And I poured that into this beer. It's more than 50% wheat. I've taken personal artistic license, a few liberties playing around while still remaining true to the style. Like, I've included a bit of Munich malt to give it a little bit of that. Crusty sounds horrible, but like bread crust, good crusty bread, and not.
Yeah, it's a good thing you said bread instead of crusty.
And to give it a little bit more character, a little bit more roastiness to it. That's the wrong word. That's a strong word. It's got a little bit more to it than you normally get from a lot of Hefeweizens. I could go on, and I could spend an hour and a half on every single one of these beers here. And Landhaus, that goes the story with after I finished brewing school, and my then girlfriend became fiance on the course of that trip, traveling around Western Germany and Belgium. And so like, as you get out into the rural areas of Germany, Landhaus, the closest translation is like manor house, but that's really not what it is. It's like in between a manor house and a B&B. It's like when you go to a vineyard or a brewer, when you go to the vineyard to the brewery, that's the house on the property where like, yeah, it's an inn, it's a B&B, it's a restaurant, it's a meeting, festival, gala hall, it's the Landhaus. So we named it after that. And Landhaus is a German word that people can pronounce. So... do you want? I'll go first on this one.
Yeah, let's have you go first here, and then we'll do it around. We'll just circle around this way, and just make Dr. Clark on the spot.
Oh yeah. So
William, sorry.
Carole King. Yeah,
I love Carole King.
So my pick for Landhaus is Carole King Tapestry. Just this whole album. Yeah. This whole album is so fantastic, and just any one of these songs could pair with this beer. It's just like, what mood do you want? I was doing the horribly nerdy thing of like listening to music on my phone while drinking the beer and like, which one of these songs pairs best with this beer? I was going back and forth between I Feel the Earth Move and You've Got a Friend, which have very different moods, but they both work with the beer so well. You know, everybody's I feel the earth move under my feet. Like
I love getting a clip each time you get into the song and you singing it. I didn't want to say it because I wanted you to do it each time.
Yeah. And you've got a friend like very different mood, like you just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running.
Oh, yes, I will.
Just to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall. All you have to do is call, and I'll be there. You've got a friend. I'm like, actually, that was the song that I'm like, oh yeah, this beer is so friendly. This beer, like, yeah.
Cameron, California State JV Choir.
All ready for the state fair, yeah.
All right. Oh, well, Mr. Clark, to put you... Dr. Clark, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's called me
You
William.
prefer William. I'm just going to stop doing that. I'm going to call you 3 names every time.
I know. Well, see, I'm not a huge wheat beer fan, I have to say.
That's fine.
Okay, it's fine. I mean, something smooth, something light. I don't know.
Like Herb Alpert?
Yeah. Yeah, right. I'm just thinking, that might be something for like a... Well, I've got all these British singers in mind.
Please. Nope. Do it.
Well,
all day.
Maybe a Des O'Connor.
Oh, okay. Dusty Springfield was one of my first thoughts.
Yeah, Dusty Springfield is the guy.
Hey, even...
More power than a Hefeweizen has.
Like
yeah.
Something smooth and mellow. And
maybe like Donovan's Hurdy-Gurdy Man.
Donovan, Mellow Yellow. Mellow
Yellow.
Perfect.
Oh, there
Perfect
we go.
Yeah. So just thinking about you.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my biggest influences, the last band that I saw... Okay, that's not true. Second to last band I saw prior to the pandemic, because I saw Tom York solo. But the second to last, I went to Chicago, and I saw a band I never thought I'd see in my life. It was Missing Adrian Belew. But outside of that, I saw Tony Levin and Robert Fripp playing with a nice lineup of King Crimson.
Oh, yeah.
And that is one of my biggest influences. And I mean, being a British man, you have to love King Crimson, right?
Yeah.
Like,
a little later in the time scale for me, but I like those.
That was a dream of mine. In fact, I have a belt buckle on right now. That's the cover of Discipline. Yeah, that's how big of a Crimson fan I am.
Man knows how to dress, quite clearly.
Okay, so for the Hefeweizen, what I brought, I rarely drink Hefeweizens. When I do, and it has been a very specific time, it's my favorite beer to have after hiking. A long day of hiking my ass off and getting down, and a beer. And there is specifically in one of my favorite hikes was called it was an Indian Peak Trail out in Nederland, Colorado, which is about a 30-minute drive outside of Boulder.
Okay.
And in Nederland, that's a very fascinating locals type of town. Like, you live in Nederland if you're Nederland born and bred, like type of thing. And they had a German restaurant there that served amazing schnitzel, and they had great Hefeweizen. So every time I get done hiking up there, I'd stop, and maybe the only time that year I'd drink a couple Hefes would be that moment. So there's something very nostalgic and very pleasing in about that time in my life, the activities for which I was doing. So I chose something that associate to me is the music equivalent to that. And to me, that is, and this album is a affront rarity. It is Recovering the Satellites, the second album ever put out by the Counting Crows.
Great album.
The Counting Crows, I have an affinity for. I think Adam Duritz is an amazing lyricist. I still have my musician friends that make fun of me for loving the Counting Crows.
Really?
Oh, because, it's not hard rock enough. It's not, those are the people that like this type of music, and that's what they like, instead of all good music, like me. So I'm going to give the title track on this, which Recovering the Satellites is the title track. And to me, when I was thinking of, also, I almost brought their new album in. So I'm going to put a little placeholder in for the Counting Crows. They have a brand new album. They haven't put anything out in 7 years. It's EP. It's 4 songs long, and it feels like a mix of Hard Candy and August and Everything After. It's very pleasant, and it made me feel like a kid again. So when I was thinking about that Hefe and like how I don't drink it all the time, but when I drink it, it's a special occasion, it's happy. And that's how I feel about listening to this album.
Nice.
So that's why I brought that for you.
All right. Okay, swapping beers around.
Now we're going out with the Shaka.
Going out with Shaka. So, you want to go first on this one? You want me to go first on this?
I'll go first.
You go first. We'll go back and forth that way.
Yeah, I went a little crazy on this guy.
Okay.
So this is British. It's a British album. One of my favorite solo artists of all time. Like, when I think of my favorite like female solo artist, it's just like Bjork, just jumps right to the top. When I think of like my favorite male solo artist, I will get into Jacob Collier a little later, but he's a more recently alive guy. He's a Quincy Jones artist. But this person is unbelievable. His name is Tom Jenkins, and his alias is Square Pusher.
Okay.
So he has an album called Do You Know Square Pusher, which is phenomenal. But this is his second album out of like, I'm going to say close to like 15. Don't quote me on that. It's got a lot of albums. But this is my absolute favorite. His father was a renowned jazz musician in Britain, and he is very jazz influenced. But I think the reason he took the misnomer, the name Square Pusher, was he would use 16-beat mixers to make everything. He'd sample so much, but he was also a phenomenal bass player, so he'd play live bass over these samples. And the drumming and the bass playing, I mean, he's one of the top 5 bass players I can ever think of. He's phenomenal.
Wow.
But it's a little bit more electronic than some people might get into. But I also love the name of the album is Hard Normal Daddy. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I love that album name. I also love the alias Square Pusher, which has, but as far as a musician, he's absolutely brilliant and one of my biggest influences. And as far as something I always go back to, it's like, I don't listen to this every day. And in fact, this album is my favorite all the way through. That's why I brought it in. And this is, again, this is a rare album. I bought this in Amsterdam. I was in Amsterdam in 2007 to see Radiohead on the In Rainbows tour, and I bought this while I was there. Which this album in the U.S. you're never gonna find it in the store. So this thing means a lot to me, and I feel when I go back to the Shaka, like I don't drink IPAs every day, but like when I do, I really enjoy that one.
All right,
that's a go-to for me.
William looks like he's...
Well, it's hard to say. This one, a little more British, a little more body, so I'd go for something with a little more momentum behind it. I'm just thinking, what else is left? Maybe I'll keep that one till later.
Okay.
I've got some classics in here.
I'm guessing you said keep it till later when you looked at the Nerdeca. I don't know why I feel that way.
Here's a classic.
Oh,
look Rolling Stones
Aftermath.
And look at
nice.
That's an original artwork on that.
It's original. I tell you why it's original. It's even in mono.
The mono. Yeah,
nice.
They can mono pressing.
So I would go in that, and if I pick something off that, maybe Mother's Little Helper would be. Mother's Little Helper might be appropriate for the for the Shaka IPA.
Oh, that's great.
Huh?
I love that.
I love that choice,
and I love the fact that, like, again, that's it. Yeah, the original cover there of Aftermath. That's really cool for you to bring out. That's something that I see that I'm like, ooh, that everyone else is like.
I got more in there.
What? Yeah,
I've got. This has got Under My Thumb on it, and High and Dry, Out of Time. All those kind of things. So, but Mother's Little Helper.
Mother's Little Helper. I love that.
Okay, I'm putting you under the gun here, but
yeah,
Rolling Stones or Beatles?
I actually...
I know you have a preference.
I was a great Beatles fan, but I was a little more a Rolling Stones fan because I really grew up loving blues and R&B. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things that was interesting about the UK at the time, particularly the bands around London, is that you had a lot of these black American blues artists, R&B artists, who really couldn't get a broad audience in this country. They were confined to black music stations. But they came over to the UK, and we thought they were great. Everybody thought they were great. It didn't matter. So you had, Muddy Waters and Chuck Berry spent time. Of course, Hendrix was a classic.
Yeah.
Sonny Boy Williamson, who played with the Yardbirds a lot. So, and I have some, I'll keep that one till later. And then we take that when we get something. Yeah. But, those.
Yeah.
So you're a little more Rolling Stones, a little more blue collar, more blues. Like, is that?
I've always loved the R&B. But, the thing is, I was listening the other day to a cut on YouTube there of the British New Musical Express, which is like Billboard, our version of Billboard. They used to give out annual awards, and this is their annual awards from 64, 65. So all the bands are on there, and they're giving a big concert in Wembley. So Moody Blues, all of the, Rolling Stones, everybody's on there. Finishes up with the Beatles. And the Beatles go through 3 or 4, and the Beatles finish up playing Long Tall Sally. And, people don't really understand. I always tell people, they do not understand what a good rock and roll band the Beatles were. I mean, when they cut loose like that, they were so good. Yeah. You look at Twist and Shout and all those things, because they had this really long, hard apprenticeship, both in Liverpool, but particularly in Hamburg. I mean, they really learned their craft. Well,
they built their, now mention that, they built their name. I mean, and again, I'm no expert on this, but again, they built their, you can tell the evolution of their music from, Love, Love Me Do to when you come out with Sgt. Pepper. And Sgt. Pepper.
Oh, yeah.
I'm bringing Frank Zappa in now.
Oh, yeah.
Had to happen.
Sgt. Pepper was the Beatles trying to make Freak Out. Yeah. That was their version of Freak Out, which most people don't understand that connection and how influential he was. Yeah. And same with people know more of that Dylan, Beatles, the first time Beatles smoked pot was with Bob Dylan sort of story. Yeah. But then the other influences on the music that come through are somewhat overlooked. And some of that experimental things, like why I love the Beatles for their progression and their ability to recreate and their ability to really come out with something original that is long lasting. I mean, the influence of it just spreads. Yeah. But over time, I have to say, I think I'm more of a Rolling Stones person when it all comes through. Because I can listen to There are more Rolling Stones songs I can listen to over and over, and I feel it. There are some over. I mean, there are some bad songs, Rolling Stones did. But there are some Beatles albums that are just I think overrated. Yellow Submarine is not that good of an album.
No.
It really isn't.
I was just dumb.
That's fine.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, but people will talk about that it's a masterpiece, and it's like, well, it's really
it's not. I
I
like Beatles better. Like Yellow Submarine. No, you're talking.
I've hit
Let It Be, Abbey Road, Sgt. Pepper.
And there's a song every time
Rubber
I listen
Soul.
to Across the Universe, I'm just like, what a song. Wow. Yeah. And they might have songs that outlive but the bigger catalog that I can listen to for a longer time, if I'm on a desert island, I'd probably take more Stones. If I had to choose Stones or Beatles, I'd probably last longer on the Stones.
All right.
And for me, that sort of comes about because more of their stuff is high tempo rock and roll. Yeah. I mean, it's R&B, Chuck Berry influenced R&B, And the one thing, I think your point about the Beatles is right, but the one thing about the Beatles that made them so different too was their openness to collaborating with anybody and everybody.
That's true.
I mean, they a lot of bands sort of close the walls, say, this is what we do and this is who we are. And they would bring in everybody. I mean, they had Rolling Stones on their album, they had Clapton on their album, they had, all these Dylan, all these people were collaborating. So they were open to all these influences all the time. And that I think, as you say, that helped the progression.
I would have loved to have had at least 3 more Beatles albums.
Oh yeah,
to see what And I mean, between especially with I feel like John Lennon and Paul McCartney just both got better with age, and they but they lost a lot. Like a physicist trying to understand a black hole or something and having a collaborator for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden that person they've had dies. It's that's a big loss to that theory and what they're developing. And I feel like two musicians that work together like that for a lifetime, it has to be a major loss, more so than a relative or anything that like.
But the trouble was, if you look at the Beatles' early life with all those groups, I mean, nobody had any clue what was going on. It was this all a new world, and I mean, they just were flogged to death. I mean, not deliberately, but they did.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they just played concert after concert. I mean, I saw them in Croydon, 1963, when they were on the billing with Jerry and the Pacemakers, and I mean, they'd have like 4 or 5 bands, so they'd play a small set. I mean, they got paid something like £150 for that. You know, band.
God.
So you know, this is not playing Shea Stadium to 50,000 plus people. Yeah. So I think burnout was a real issue. I mean, it was such a hard life on the road all the time. And concert after concert after concert.
From personally, I've spent the most time was a little over 3 months where I was on the road.
Yeah.
And while that process is, great when you get back and you have the stories to tell, but it is cumbersome and I mean, I'm 35, like 25. That's all I wanted to do in my life. Yeah. But like 35, I mean, it will wear you down. The people that I see doing these world tours and stuff, like I have a crazy appreciation. I mean, they have a different luxury than what I have.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. But I mean, especially, I think of this with comedians too. I'm a big fan of a lot of comedians and those road comics, like, you know, it's the bottom of the barrel. Like they're not getting any love. They're staying in tiny hotel. And that takes a love for an art to do that. Yeah. The only reason you persist and keep doing it is your love of that craft. Yeah. And that's the only thing that keeps you doing it.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So it was a hard life. So, you know, they only lasted, 6-7 years, and then they were burned out. They burned out with each other, and they were burned out with the process. And they were going, I think, you know, if they came out now, and they've been there now, I think they'd have been better managed for the longer term. I think they would have probably
and that age you had managers and there's different industry. People take advantage. Yeah. Like look at the Colonel and Elvis. Like Jesus.
Well, Alan Klein, right, and the Beatles. I mean, after you know, Epstein really controlled the Beatles when they were starting. And you know, you can say that
not
he made
Jeffrey Epstein.
No, Brian Epstein. And you know, you can say he was sort of like Svengali to them, but he made them what they were. But he also kind of kept them secure. And say when he died, then you know, they came over here and they got with Alan Klein, whatever it was in New York, and he just robbed them blind. So yeah.
Well, okay, so
all right,
so my pick for Shaka.
Oh yeah, we're still on the Shaka. Yeah.
I also had to go. I had to go. So like, it's IPA. Got to go like fucking rock and roll, man.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I had to go with it because I had to make the joke because I'm a brewer, and it's an IPA. So my pick is Dire Straits. Money for Nothing.
Money for Nothing.
I love that.
What a band.
So, okay, so how you feel about Steely Dan is how I feel about Dire Straits. Like, I love Dire Straits like I don't love Steely Dan.
And that's the other thing is, like, I also had to pick that, partly the tongue-in-cheek joke, but also because it's an IPA, but, like, it's the rock and roll song. It's on MTV, singing about MTV, doing the MTV thing and totally making fun of MTV and doing the music of MTV better than everyone else.
I'm almost surprised you didn't save that for the hammock then.
I've got a better song for the hammock and that was the other thing. Like I had these two songs and I'm like, God damn it, which of these do I do for hammock and which of these do I do for Shaka? So you'll love my pick for hammock.
I saw Dire Straits down in Wright State. Down in the Nutter Center at Wright State, probably in.
Was it called the Nutter Center?
It was called the Nutter Center.
That's awesome.
I even
Can I get you to swap me the IPA and the Saga?
I even met Mr. Nutter. He was a little guy dressed in polyester from head to foot, and he put the money.
That is a perfect explanation of what I expect Mr. Nutter to look
Mr. Nutter, little small guy. He had this jacket on that was this hound's big red and white houndstooth. I mean, perfect thing, like out of the 70s.
Oh, God.
And so this was like, must have been the early 90s. They did their, it was on this tour, and God, they were so good. I mean, Mark Knopfler is so good. Yeah.
I mean, it's a great band.
Yeah,
it's a great
it
fucking
is, it is a great band, period.
When I, if I have nothing else to do and I want an uplift, I put on the Alchemy, the thing from Alchemy on Sultans of Swing.
I still use Sultans. I still use Sultans of Swing as a guitar lesson.
The guitar work
for every one of my
is
students.
Just immaculate.
I always end up hitting Sultans of Swing for a specific lesson.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Yep.
So next up, we got Icelandic Saga.
Yep.
I'll let you go because I feel like I already disclosed what I'm doing, and so
You're gonna love my pick.
I am
so
excited.
talking about God, this was Scott took a trip and challenged me to do this.
Still my
beer.
favorite can, and I think of this.
I love that can. Yeah.
I say this when I'm in the market. This is our brand identifier.
I love
I
beer. Yeah,
like this. This is the.
It's a great beer.
This is our 4th edition as one of our cores, and
There's nothing like it. There have been people that have tried to rip off it, which
really.
Oh, well, you were the one that came up with the Nordic ale, right? Was that sort of like?
There are.
I've seen
Icelandic.
I've seen platform. I've seen a couple people try to come out with Nordic ales since we put this on the market, and they were all shit.
Well, there was another thing before that where there's like some yeast strain that people like that's really weird and funky and can do cool things or horrible things, and I didn't play with that. And so that's why we said Nordic because it's a similar word but not the same one to what everything else is. And I should know this term, but I'm blanking on it, and I'm thinking more about music, and I've had a few beers.
Hey, beers.
Beers. I want to flag down whoever's out there. I think we need a second.
I'm right there with you. Hey, in fact, I'll let you go. I'll just go grab these because
you want to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go grab these.
All right.
Oh, you're not gonna miss me. You guys got
Well,
this.
let me give you my pick so that you could scream "Oh fuck you" as you walk out.
Hey, can you say that on this station?
Yeah.
Is it, oh, okay.
Got a 7-second delay or something? Yeah.
Well, we're an adult station.
Look at this. I see
So
what's coming.
you saw what's coming.
I did.
So my pick,
Zeppelin.
Zeppelin 2,
Yes.
Ramble On.
And look, you have a perfectly crisp brand new.
Oh, it's like brand new.
pressing. Yeah, you do.
Beautiful.
Yeah, you
I
do.
do.
I've
Ramble
never,
On.
You know what? I've never seen a new pressing of that album. I owned a record store for years. I've only seen used pressings of that. It looks glorious.
And it's so quiet too. Okay, we're so we I don't know if we are hipsters or not, if we are what hipsters aspire to be.
We are.
We are hipsters. Okay. Yeah, Ramble On because Vikings and hobbits and shit.
Yeah. Why do you go?
Okay, yeah. Lisa sent that to me. I sent that on to you. That was there's a pie chart that you guys can find online. It's worth looking up, and it says what every Zeppelin song's about, and it's 40
like 49 sex.
Yeah, 49% sex, 48%
Vikings and hobbits and shit.
yeah, and then 1% citrus.
Yeah.
Because of tangerine. Which was hilarious just description of how to cover all a pie chart of every Zeppelin song.
I saw them in student union in Liverpool when they were playing. I have a couple of stories about them. I went as a freshman undergraduate, and so we're in the dorms, the hall of residence, and I've got a corridor. We all have single rooms there. That's the way you do it in Britain. You have a single study bedroom, but a bunch of the guys there were dental.
And then you invite the girls over to study.
But no, come on. So the rest of a bunch of the other guys were dental students, because there you go straight into dental schools in undergrad. And this one guy, he came from Stourbridge in Worcester. And so we started talking about this, and I started listening to music. And he said, "Oh yeah, Led Zeppelin, yeah. Oh yeah, I was at school with Robert Plant. He was in my class at school." Really? So I know that Tyler knows Robert Plant's son now. Right?
Yeah,
who has very successful brewery. So that's one story. The other story I heard was Robert Plant was on Fresh Air one night on NPR.
Yeah.
Afternoon, I'm driving home, and he's going, and she's saying, "Yeah, well, in those days, you really didn't have the kind of equipment you do now. And he said, yeah, that's right. He said, I remember we were playing a concert in Columbus, Ohio at the university. And I'm playing away, and I looked up in the ceiling, and I realized that's a loudspeaker. So the next day, John Bohm and I went downtown to the music store and bought ourselves amplifiers. So that was the days when we did concerts in St. John Arena. When I first came, they used to have been before they, got banned and shut down, and people used to sit on the floor, right? So they're using the big basketball speakers that are up on the top to produce the sound.
This is a cool little factoid that he brought up, which is Grateful Dead's Wall of Sound.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with this, Cameron, just a little fun music thing. Before there were any great PA systems or great designs like you have today, people had to especially like the Grateful Dead that had these giant crowds. Well, if you were in the back, you couldn't hear the vocals, their PAs. So the Grateful Dead created what was known as the Wall of Sound. And it was the biggest undertaking of any touring band at that time, especially when they went through Europe. And they would have special engineers and everything, and they'd build this 40-plus foot wall of speakers so that music could touch every person.
Nice.
And the reason that PAs progressed in the way they have are partly because of the Grateful Dead.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they all lost half their hearing as a result, right? Because
Before
people thought to put.
That's part of if it makes you feel any better. The first Bonnaroo I went to 3 concerts where I was like, oh my God, why didn't I bring headphones? Like my ears were just I thought they were just going to start bleeding by the end of the show.
Yeah. I'll go around and grab the next. What do you want? Rather the same.
I'll have a Saga.
Saga?
You're talking about it.
You know what? Yeah, since we're doing a Saga, I'll do a Saga. Why not?
A Saga?
I'll do a Saga.
Yeah.
I do a Saga.
Excellent.
You do a Saga? I do a Saga.
I'll do a Saga. Saga. 3 Sagas.
Three Sagas.
Orange Whip, 3 Orange Whips. It's a little Blues Brothers reference.
Little Blues Brothers.
Yes, Mr. Dan Aykroyd.
What a great.
Another
great.
John Candy.
John Candy.
Messed that up. Oh, well, see, you already got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Another great.
Great to have good bartenders.
Yeah.
That's what we have here.
We do. So everyone knows, we have some great bartenders here.
Best bartenders. The best cocktails.
Oh, it was everything. Yep, absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Ramble on. What do I even need to say?
Ramble on.
I think you covered that.
You nailed that one, I think. Yeah.
Well, do you have any Icelandic influence you want to throw into here?
Well, if I look at that, then Icelandic influence, there's only one thing.
Or stargazing. Is there a song you like to gaze at stars at?
No, there's only one thing comes to mind. It has to be ABBA. It has to be. It has to be.
Okay,
Waterloo. I have to think back to those dreadful Eurovision Song Contests, the appalling nadir of popular music. But
I'm sorry to bring that up.
That's okay. It's a memory. I can talk it out and get over it. We're okay.
I went.
You went.
The most popular band from Iceland. In fact, slightly inspired by Peter Moon of
Our
Mad
good friend.
Moon Cider, our great friend, amazing guy, amazing products, Mad Moon Cider. I was going to do Bjork because him and I talked about it, but he mentioned when he was here and we mentioned we were doing this, he brought up the Sugar Cubes. And the Sugar Cubes are from Iceland. It's Bjork's first band. The album Life Too Good is absolutely brilliant, and it's their very first album. Again, still the most popular selling album ever to come out of Iceland, the most popular band there. And my song I choose is Birthday, which is my favorite song off of that. I think it just shows you how amazing Bjork was going to be at that time, and now obviously we know who she is. But I wanted to choose something from Iceland, and Peter throwing that in my face when we were talking about the Iceland, what we were doing here today. I'm like, well, I own this album. I can't not bring it. And this, again, is a harder album to find. I think it's brilliant. Most people that they know Bjork, but they don't know this band. So this is something worth listening to, and it's absolutely phenomenal.
All right.
Song is Birthday, my choice.
So next up, we have Hammock. You want to swap that out?
I've got that for you.
So Hammock is our answer to the hazy IPA thang. It is a
Bang.
thang.
I don't think I've tried this one.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, is it cold? It's not that cold. So this is one of those things where, like, when people, all right,
Our sagas arrived.
yay, beer.
Look at this. Oh, man. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Speaking of sexy, amazing bartenders, this is Miles, one of our prime candidates for alien abduction.
Who the mnemonic of, like, how I've remembered your name is Miles Davis. So like,
Miles Davis, yes.
Named after, so yeah.
oh, good. Oh, that is who you were named after.
Yeah.
Parents are big jazz people. So yes.
Great.
Yep. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
I miss you already, Miles.
Oh yes.
Where were we? Oh yeah, hammock.
The hammock.
So being challenged to make a hazy IPA, and I've got my feelings about that style, and I think,
Well, you didn't want to make a car bomb?
yeah. I mean, my problem with the hazy IPA style is the flavor profile of good hazy IPAs is good and is great, and that's actually what I went for with Shaka.
But you have the hop burn that came into play.
Well, we're getting into the long story that, like, because those original, what started the hazy IPA craze, as those breweries, like, got bigger and got better equipment, their, like, beers stopped being hazy.
Because in the 70s, they didn't have good enough equipment. You didn't have nice whirlpools.
No, these were the 2010s.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. It was
So not just straight from the 70s.
no, not straight from the 70s. It was the late aughts and the early 10s that these were coming out. Well, they were doing Franken Brewing. They were using refurbished dairy equipment and stuff like that, and they were rushing things out. It's a common thing. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just like, some beer, like, if you're not filtering, you can get a bit of haze in a beer. Whatever. And they weren't filtering. They didn't have fancy equipment. They were trying to get everything out of there they could. They were worried about flavor. They weren't worried about how it looked. And so the beer came out hazy. And it had great flavor, but my problem was what everybody latched onto is, oh, it's hazy. And like, no, you can have a beer that tastes like that without it being hazy. But it's got to be hazy. It's got to be hazy. And I was like, fine. You know what's hazy? Hefeweizen. So I did a, like, fruity tropical Hefeweizen IPA, which is what this is. And it gave us an opportunity to work in a dick joke that Scott had been making since we started things about banana hammocks. So,
Well, that is one of my top-selling beers in the market right now.
it's a good beer.
And of all of my locations, Palmer's Beverage off Indianola sells that beer like it is going out of style. I sell more cases of that. I sell 4 of those cases for every 1 case at that store.
Must be all those student
there's a lot of
parties, huh?
hammock lovers on
Yeah.
Indianola.
Oh yeah, and to continue the complete lack of dick jokes, we made it 6.9% alcohol.
Of course you
we did. And yeah, it was the thing where, like, I didn't want to brew a hazy IPA, and I brewed this out of spite, and it was like, this is really good. I'm like, give me that. Let me try. Like, damn it, it is. This is a really good beer. Crap. Like, yeah, damn it, hooray. So yeah.
Yeah,
What?
I like that beer.
Wait, who are we?
We're
Yeah,
going with
it's your turn. Oh, is it me first? I'll go
you,
first.
It's you first, I think, because
It doesn't matter.
You first.
So
Throwing it back.
I don't have an album for this.
Okay.
I wanted so.
Yeah, I
my
know.
pick-
I didn't.
You
Have
didn't
it.
have it.
I didn't have
So my pick for this was the B-52s.
it. Great choice. by the way.
B-52s. I mean, really, their whole self-titled album is fantastic.
Thank you for picking something out that now I need to buy in
Yeah.
the next 2 weeks, because now I'm like I'm looking at my record collection and I'm like, well, shit,
Yeah,
I don't have a B-52s.
but specifically, Dance This Mess Around. Because it's so weird. It's so like, what even is this? But it's so good. It's so fun. It is just a fun, kick it out, dance, party song, but it's so weird and it makes no sense when you think about it. Like, yeah, this is the happiest party dance song that is in no way built like a happy party dance song. There's no chorus. It's got these weird dissonance. They're talking about made up dances. They're talking about Limburger cheese.
I like how you went very esoteric, like I did on some of these beers. You went that way with this one specifically to name that song. So I'm excited. I like that.
I was running one morning and that song came on, and I'm like, hammock.
Boom.
Boom.
So B-52s in the hammock all day long.
All right.
Well, you know,
You've never had this beer.
well, no, I haven't. But you know,
Oh, wow.
I also didn't grow up anywhere where we put bananas in beer, and so that's.
There were no bananas killed in this process. The banana flavor is provided by the Hefeweizen yeast itself.
Exactly, and you know, and pink labels. So you know, there's only one song that comes to mind. We already mentioned him, and that's Donovan, Mellow Yellow. Bananas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have gone with Hail Atlantis.
Yes. Well, it could be. Yeah.
I don't know why, because that one is a great slow build up, and it makes me for some reason think of the movie, the Ray Liotta movie, Scorsese,
Yeah.
Goodfellas. There we
Yep.
go.
All right.
Yeah, that's right.
So I went a little different way. Now, I was so excited to bring in I was looking through all my Buffett. Now, either I lost this album, it was stolen, or I just never owned it, but I swear I did. And I was going through my Buffett collection because I'm a little biased because I used to live, my father used to live outside of Boca Raton, Florida for about 5 years. So, man, I used to visit him. Total time I spent down there is probably 2.5 years during all that time. And I have a little bit of Florida in me, a little bit of rum in me still. And I still love Jimmy Buffett. So, I could go on a long-winded story of how my mentor inspired Jimmy Buffett, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, yes.
I just thought of one I should have fucking thrown in. You just made me think of it. Like, so I didn't, but my dad, my brother, and my stepbrother lived in St. Thomas, USVI for a while, in the Virgin Islands. U.S. Virgin Islands, USVI.
I almost went to college there because of a music mentor.
Yeah.
His name was Bela. A phenomenal, like the best music teacher I could have had.
But on that note, like, great artist my dad turned me on to that was, like, super popular with everybody there. So, like, if you want to be, like, legit Rasta and whatnot, Lucky Doobie. Like,
Yeah, you messed up. You should have brought in.
I don't have any Lucky Doobie. I'm like, yeah, damn it. But that's just like a shout out, you know, if you like, if you like Bob Marley, like everybody knows Bob Marley, but it's all about Lucky Doobie. If you want the street cred.
That's how I feel about like Toots and the Maytals. Like, I mean, I love Bob Marley to death, but like Reggae Got Soul, anytime that song comes on, I just want to dance and be happy.
We didn't put any reggae on. We're gonna have to like add some reggae in here for this.
Yeah, well, we just did. We just did. We just
All
talked
right.
about Toots and the Maytals and Lucky Doobie and Marley. I mean, Marley, African Herbsman. That's the album good to start with. And Toots and the Maytals just all day long. I'm going back over though to Mr. Jimmy Buffett because I did not have the song I wanted to use, which was Schoolboy Heart, phenomenal song off of this album Banana Wind, which is exactly one of the reasons I was going to choose it. As I'm digging through my records today, I realized I can't find Banana Wind. So I brought the next best thing, and while we don't have coconut in this beer, I love this song. It's Coconut Telegraph, the self-titled album off of Coconut Telegraph itself, and there's no way to listen to this album and not be happy.
Yep.
Right? All right.
Am I right or am I right? I'm right. And it's a boat. Like, if I had that beer in a boat, boom, all day long. That album.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Speaking of beers and boats and music.
The best things.
And the Virgin, that's the best things. So, like, one summer when I was in college, like I said, my dad lived in the USVI, and, like, one summer I flew down there to help him ferry his boat that he was living on, because, of course, he was living on a boat, up island from St. Thomas to Fort Lauderdale. And for crazy music, it's like, I've probably showed you the picture of like me sitting on the back of a sailboat looking like an extra out of Miami Vice, like with a can of whipped cream next to me holding a 45 in my hand.
Sure, I've seen that.
I'll show you that. Like,
I've seen that picture and never asked questions about it. No, I've not seen that picture.
Okay,
in fact, you don't even have to show me. Just make it a poster. I'll put it on my wall.
Yeah, so literally this is what you do when you're blue water sailing. It's way more boring than you can imagine. So we gather, like, we're out in the ocean. You can throw garbage overboard. So we gathered up a couple of things that could float, and we started plinking off the back of a boat.
Oh, yeah.
So we just like, like carton of milk, throw it off. But one of the things we decided to do on that trip, like at one point, my dad is just like, we should name the horse. What? Like, yeah, that horse, he's had no name for too long. His name should be Ralph. I've been through the desert on a horse that's named Ralph.
Okay.
So on that trip, when I think of the Caribbean, I think of going through the desert on a horse that's named Ralph.
Hey,
I understand.
Any reason to? Oh, I guess that is. Wait, was that Neil Young? Desert on a Horse with No Name?
I think so.
Was
It's
it?
Neil Young.
Yeah.
I love Neil Young. I want to say that is. It could have been him, and it could have been one of the.
Neil Young. Of course, it was him with somebody else, because he's Neil Young.
Anyway, I love Neil Young, the songwriter. Glad you bring him up.
So next up, we have the Nordeca beer.
The Nordeca.
So we did this. Do you want to talk about this?
We can keep this back. Me?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. Like, we can both talk about this.
I mean, considering I think honestly, the fans. I didn't realize until I started digging in on that artwork, like the people who love the crew and made everything about our home here part of the crew is represented on that.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful.
It's amazing.
So literally this room is where the crew was saved. Like, this is where Save the Crew met.
Podcast much
Absolutely.
better
This
than
table,
this.
this table is where the crew was saved. So we've worked with the Nordeca and just
put
like
a plaque on it. It should be engraved.
and everything, like all the stupid little Easter eggs on this are all to do with that. So because of that, there is only one correct. There is only one correct answer for the song to pair with this beer.
Okay, I'm excited for what you're coming up with here.
It's gonna take a lot to tear me away from you. Africa.
Of course, you have to use Africa.
It has to be Africa.
I don't. Not that I had 1 billion copies of Toto in my record store. I don't think I actually have one in my collection, which makes me feel shitty. Working here, I feel like I have to get that just for that. But good thing is you can get that album for like 25 cents.
But it doesn't matter. You don't need the album. You just need that song.
Well,
so
I got you.
There is only one correct. Everything else is subjective with the rest of these beers. It's literally on the can.
I can't wait to tell you my thinking on. I know.
You know.
I thought about it. I did think exactly of that, but I wanted to do something a little bit more of the energy of the beer.
Go ahead.
So, I was going to pull in the Stooges because that made me feel like a soccer crowd, or at least some punk. I almost grabbed Sex Pistols. I almost grabbed this. And I wanted something a little bit more American soccer hooligan because we're the MLS, right?
Yeah.
We are the MLS champions. And I decided to go with something that I think is the equivalent of it's not American punk, but there's no band like it. There's no band since, and it's a just monumental piece of American art. Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
Just hell yes. I'm going to go with People of the Sun. We could go with Down Rodeo, but People of the Sun is going to be, you could go Bulls on Parade all day.
The whole
album is what I want to drink about 10 of those beers to and go into a soccer game in a thunderstorm. That's what I want to see.
Damn straight.
I have that is a gaping hole in bands that I have not seen. I've always wanted to see them.
That would be a good concert.
The 2 times they've played Coachella, it was in I didn't fly out to do it. One of my friends did, and I'll just tell you, I wouldn't be happy seeing that band if I went to the World Cup. I feel like this band is the World Cup to me. That's how I feel. If I went to the World Cup, or if I went and saw this band and I didn't either break someone's nose or get a broken nose, then we didn't do it right.
Right.
And then, so that is why I thought of that band when I thought of this beer. And that's why I went that way.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I look at this one, and this is historical, and this has momentous impact, right? So I thought I would pick out the best rock and roll band that nobody in this country has ever heard of.
Ooh.
And here it is. Status Quo.
Status Quo.
Status Quo, and they're still out there performing, and they are.
Wait, they're still performing?
Yeah, they are the best live rock and roll band you would ever. There was a
Damn.
Are they doing like decent sized tours, or is it like
yeah.
Iron Maiden, where it's like you get one chance to see them, but you got to go to Antarctica this year?
They do. They still do big tours.
That's cool.
They're very popular in Europe. Germans love them and so. And so I picked one of these. Rocking All Over the World is the title of this one. And I would put that. So you haven't heard Status Quo. They were probably the best known of all the British radio disc jockeys. He was asked one time, the disc jockey, what would you play if you wanted to get people out on the dance floor? And he said, he thought for a bit, and he said, well, I got 2 suggestions. Number 1, Brown Sugar by the Rolling Stones. And number 2, anything by Status Quo. Anything. So, this is, it's great. It's great stuff. This is all, they are my workout playlist.
All right.
It's hard rock with Status Quo.
Well, I know what I'm going to listen to on my run tomorrow
Go
morning.
listen to Status Quo.
That's awesome.
That'll keep you going.
Hey,
So
thank you for bringing that in. That's
I
great.
think that goes with the soccer culture,
It definitely does, and that's something like when you were doing the Hefeweizen, I have some obscure krautrock. It was hard for me not to bring in like Triumvirate, who you might be familiar with, just because I feel like British people appreciate keyboard players more than Americans.
Yep.
And Triumvirate had one of the best European keyboard players. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but super German crowd band, but like some of the best keyboard playing I've ever heard of. Anyway, I almost brought that, but I thought it was too obscure.
All right. So last but not least.
Oh, yes.
Maybe not last. God, based on the time, maybe last. We're not even going to get to the stuff that's not in cans at this rate.
Yeah, well, we got some other things to touch base on.
We can mention our picks, because I've got picks for stuff that's not in cans.
But I like the idea, before we go to the extra stuff outside of cans, we should talk about Record Store Day and maybe concerts that are coming up, because I think people would love to talk about it.
So we've only got 11 minutes left.
All right, let's do this beer, and let's go to Record Store Day, and then maybe if we
and then we're going to sit around drinking and run long.
Yeah, why not?
Because that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So last but not least of beer in cans is Gall. Clocking in at a potent 11%. Ooh. This is our...
That's in good condition. Ooh. Oh, you have the star cut. Look, you have the star cuts in them.
That's what they all. That's the way they all were in the UK.
Well, that's because
the record players had the little central spindle.
Or your jukeboxes, right? That's how the jukebox players put different. That's freaking awesome.
Here, hold that up for the camera.
Sorry, that's a little bit.
For those of you who haven't seen,
so these cuts in the center. Oh, hey, the Kingsman. So another cool thing about so what I wanted, you mentioned Hamburg, Germany. Just a real quick sidebar. Hamburg, Germany. You mentioned the Beatles and so forth. I have a rare copy of a unfilled out version of the Beatles versus the Third Reich. Have you ever seen that album?
No, I haven't.
So it has a scorecard on the back, and what's crazy is, you have these. Basically, the crowd seems like just straight Nazis. And they're
absolutely.
yelling at the Beatles after every song. Yeah. And the first song, after they get done playing, they say like Zeke Hale, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And there's a scorecard on the back where you can score who wins, the Beatles or these Nazi crowd. And most of those are filled out. But this is a crappy recording. It's somebody that's in the audience with the level of recording equipment they had at the time that somebody could bring to that show before people were doing that type of stuff, any bootlegs. So it is a horrible recording, but it is a definite piece of history. And you have the second song, after they end, everyone chanting "Where's Pete Best," like the original drummer, and just taunting him. And it's crazy that exists for this band that is universally loved.
You know, if you look at the pictures of the Beatles immediately before Epstein sort of repackaged them to go on tour, I mean, they are black leather head to foot.
Oh yeah,
they'd be right in with that kind
flaming
of
condoms
ethos.
and everything.
Yeah, black leather head to foot. There's another one. There's another classic.
The Hollies.
With Graham Nash.
That's really cool. Look at you bringing in some
Hollies
gems.
was such a great band.
Ooh.
I would love to borrow this album.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sure. I mean, you're
I
a record store. You know how to clean these things up, right? These things are well. I would. I used to clean them up.
Oh, you get a nice. It's like a better version of a horsehair brush that you'd have for your pool table.
Yeah, I've got one of those.
A little less coarse.
Yeah.
And you'd get a little bit of a cleaning solution.
I've got
I mean,
Okay,
really,
we're
you
back.
could just use distilled water and spin right around.
Yeah.
But you want to go clockwise.
Yeah.
Not counter. I don't know. There's something about clockwise.
That's all right.
Or the way I always do it, I just like run it on the record player and just sort of place the thing in place as it spins.
I don't recommend doing that just because of the extra liquid that could possibly. Just as a owner, I mean, a lot of your players probably fine. Some people have more digital components, and some people could get messy with their spray. You know.
I spray it onto the brush.
I know that I know you will do things this way. I just don't want to enforce bad habits upon our millions of listeners.
Okay.
So,
in the last couple of minutes that we've got, now that we're back, so Gaul. Sean,
yes,
what's your pick for
I am
Gaul?
here for the Gaul, and I went with a lot of different things. As I was saying, my record I was going to choose was like my most expensive single record I owned, De Loused in the Comatorium, the first Mars Volta album, which was never reissued. That's like a $700 vinyl. But I decided, what am I going to do? Like, me as a human, if I am sitting there and
Drinking 11% alcohol.
and I was thinking this in my studio the other day because I hadn't had a beer in a bit. I had my I had my studio open, I had my keyboard going, and I was like, I'm going to open a Gaul. And then I thought, who would drink a Gaul and what song fits? If I had a baby grand piano, what would I be doing instead of sitting in my room with my fully weighted MIDI keyboard? And that is the one and the only, and maybe a forgotten American gem, a treasure to me, Mr. Tom Waits.
Oh, yeah.
I love Tom Waits.
Well, yeah.
And this album, specifically, Small Change, has the song The Piano Has Been Drinking, which
Not me.
is one of my favorite rambly best, just if I'm drunk, that is a good song, period.
It
and
is.
That song sounds,
If you're sober, that's a good song.
yes, everything about it's a good song, but it is literally, I feel like if I just took a half barrel of the Gaul and dumped it into my piano, what my player piano would play itself. So
Yeah.
I chose Small Change, brilliant album, brilliant man, brilliant actor and musician, Tom Waits.
I went a very different direction.
I'm fine with that. There could be a lot of directions with the Gaul. I realized that when choosing something, because that's why I told you, De Louse, like Mars Volta, crazy top 25 albums, but very intense, insane music, and I ended up landing on The Piano Has Been Drinking.
This was the first one. This was the first song I picked for one of the beers, and much like Mars Volta, we've got to get some prog in here.
Oh, baby, The Grand Illusion.
The Grand Illusion, and really this whole album, but especially come sail away. Because 5 minutes in, you're going to be screaming at the top of your lungs about riding on a starship with aliens.
I still want to do the Gall challenge, which is you drink one of those as fast as you can while listening to 30th Century Man, which is the song they say, like, oh, shaking hands with Charles de Gaulle. And then you have to sing it the second time. This will be a excerpt podcast bonus thing that we do at some point. I promise. That's a great choice. I got to see the Styx for free like 8 years ago. And it was when I had my practice space over at Morningstar, where everybody and their mother had a practice space downtown. And I walk over to the Styx. You're pointing at me. Did you see
I
that
got to
show?
see them for free.
Was it at the LC?
It wasn't was it at the LC?
And
was that 8 years ago? That wasn't 8 years ago.
I mean, 8 to 10. And the best thing they did was they didn't just play like, oh, this song, then this. It's like, oh, they're playing the Grand Illusion. They play like the first 4 songs in a row. So they understood. No, our song, like, there's a
Well, of
feel.
course they did, yeah.
And you know what? Not doing drugs for like 50 years did wonders for them because they sounded. I was like, is this pre-recorded? It was so good.
Yeah. Oh, God. But yeah, like, Styx. Gall. Just like sit there, pound Gall, get drunk, scream about, sing about aliens at the top of your lungs.
Yeah. So tying back to just a couple things before we tie up would be, I want to mention Record Store Day and then our concerts. If there's a concert that either you wish you could see, you want to see that's coming up, any of those things. But the first I'm going to go with is Record Store Day. This ties back to you, my good friend, with Devo. Yes. Devo. I looked at all of the Record Store Day 2021 list, and I'm going...
But for those who don't know, Record Store Day happens every year. For 2021, because of COVID, they split it up into 2 days. So it's going to be next weekend, and the weekend after, the 12th and the 19th.
Wait. Is that? I thought it was. Is it? I'm crazy. Then I'm wrong. It's next weekend. I thought it was in July. I thought it was July 12th. Dude, you're probably right.
I think I'm right because the June 12th is a Saturday.
You're more analytical than me, and I would have overlooked that and just seen something crazy. But
keep talking.
Record Store Day usually occurs around April 20th, of course, and it is one of the best holidays for music collectors. While I think that it's got a little convoluted over the years and used to have a little
June 12th and 17th.
Okay, well, June 12th.
June 12th and July 17th.
Okay.
We were both right.
Okay. That's a weird separation. So
honors even.
That means I'm going to have to go out twice because what I have in store for you out of everything that I looked at, ladies and gentlemen, my favorite thing, and I will literally be there at 7 in the morning, which I haven't gone out in a Record Store Day for since I own my
Since you owned a record store.
Since I owned my record store, yeah. I have not been in line and done that deep dive, but I will do it this year, and I will stab 10 people in the row just to get my copy of the first time ever being pressed, and I can't believe it. There's 3,500 of them released, so a larger number than some of your Record Store Day releases, but it is the Life Aquatic soundtrack with Captain Steve Zissou, probably the best of all Wes Anderson soundtracks, in my opinion, and it features not only Devo, but some original compositions by Devo, and it's absolutely phenomenal. So I can't wait to own that. That's what I'm in line for.
Nice.
I know that there's a couple other things we mentioned, but that's right at the top of my head.
Yeah, my pick, what I'm looking forward to, they've got a Tears for Fears live in Montreal, something like that. Tears for Fears live. Especially, a lot of that is like for Julie, for my wife, and like trying to get her to listen to albums with me. And she loves live albums. She loves 80s music. I love Tears for Fears. I mean, come on, like
You're always going to have your true listening buddy.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Well,
Did you
I'm
see,
trying to. No, my dog is my listening buddy.
That's exactly who I'm saying. That's who I talked about. Yeah, I don't remember your dog's name, so I was waiting for you to make
Chap,
that.
yeah. My dog is my listening buddy. I go down and listen to records, and he sits on the bed. Like I've got that bed there behind me, so he can sit on the bed.
Did you see Tears for Fears at the Shot a few years ago?
No.
They were there. They
I knew they were there. I wanted. There's like a handful of songs
with,
I would just kill to hear.
Hall & Oates. Hall & Oates and Tears for Fears in the shot.
Oh.
I took Debbie because she's a big Hall & Oates fan.
Our favorite singer-songwriter, Mr. Holland Oates.
Yeah.
So it's a stupid Step Brothers movie reference where they confuse him as being one person.
Well, we're officially done, but we're still going because we're having fun.
One last thing we got to talk about, and I made a note of this, so I'm pulling it up to get you the exact date, guys. I told you that my last concerts pre-pandemic, and obviously me being a musician, and I am a concert goer and a concert person, and I miss playing live more than anything in my life, but I also miss seeing live music. And I've actually, just to plug in Natalie's, I went over to Natalie's down the street from us. Yeah. Both Natalie's in Grandview and Natalie's Coal Fire Pizza in Worthington have absolute phenomenal music. Musicians they bring out, and the sound quality is some of the best in town. Yeah. Now, what I saw right before the pandemic, I told you, and that was my very last show. Artist, British artist, as all for some reason the best white American artists white artists seem to be British. I swear, guitar players at least,
of course.
And Jacob Collier is just absolutely phenomenal. He's 26 years old. I think he's the musician's musician. There'll be books written about this guy, and he is now coming. Just to let you know, if you want to check this person out, a great introduction to his music. Again, me calling him a musician's musician. It's a little heady as far as the music goes. It goes deep dive on stuff. It's like Zappa said, there might only be 3 or 4 people that really understand what we're doing up here, but that doesn't matter. If we play good music, we play good. And that's how I feel about this guy. 26 years old, British, Jacob Collier. He is playing the Newport Music venue Festival, as of May 21st, 2022. I strongly recommend seeing that show. That will be the next tickets I buy outside of probably a couple festivals this summer.
I'll give you a couple of different ones. I know they're back on tour, and you brought up the name Natalie's, and I'm sure it won't be long, but the last concert we went to before the shutdown in February of 2000 was at Natalie's up here in Grandview, and it was the Huntertones.
Oh,
and you haven't seen have you seen the Huntertones? Yeah, they're OSU graduates. They're a jazz group.
They're really good.
They're really good.
They played at my, believe it, it's so weird. They played, I'm 99% sure. Maybe I'm mixing that name up, but I'm 99% sure. My brother's wedding reception. Yeah. They had right back over here, there's that wood, next to the hotel, or not hotel, the apartments there's that wood factory place. I guess it's right over there.
Oh, yeah.
Right behind Giant Eagle and over there.
Yeah.
They have a loft that they rented out. And so there's a giant charcuterie board. It was a big dance floor, and they had the Huntertones there playing for their wedding reception. Yeah. It was brilliant.
Huh. I mean, a good band. The guy who's the trumpet player with them, the African-American guy, he was in the OSU marching band with Alex. Same time.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's the trumpet player for John Baptiste on Late Night with Stephen Colbert.
And, and John Baptiste just won multiple Grammys for his.
He's so talented.
He wrote the soundtrack for Soul, which I haven't seen that movie, but yes, so
he got the Oscar.
John Baptiste has just been blowing up everywhere recently.
Yeah, no, he's
phenomenal.
But so I mean, but the Huntertones, they're all kids came out of the OSU jazz program, and they're really good.
Great reference.
So they'll be down. The other one I saw the other day, and this is a really different change of pace. I think it's October, and it's going to be at the LC Musical. Is that the one down by the arena?
Yeah, I mean, they call it, who knows what they call it. We all still call it the LC.
It changes every time.
Yeah.
It's LC something. And there's a group called We Banjo 3, and they're coming in with another band, and they are sort of a traditional Irish band, but they're not. They're much more upbeat than that. They were the headliners at the Dublin Irish Festival a couple of years ago and so on, and they are really fun to watch. I mean, just really up-tempo, just, it's different kind of music, but boy, they're fun. So they'll be in town. I think they're coming in October.
Hey, thank you for that. Yeah. Any on your radar, Cameron? I know you haven't been looking because
I haven't been looking. What I'm sure is going to come up, because I haven't seen them live yet, and I'm sure they're awesome. Foo Fighters just released a new album, so you know they're going to be touring to support that.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah.
Actually, I know I heard on the radio they'll be playing sometime this summer. I want to say it's late July or August. They're playing it in Cincinnati at Riverbank.
Okay.
So I know that just because I happened to overhear it.
Yeah, I like last I was like they were in Columbus for Rock on the Range, and I didn't want to go to Rock on the Range,
Yeah.
Well,
even if it was to see Foo Fighters.
I'll
like,
tell you what, Cameron. If I happen to get lucky enough to get engaged and marry this girl I'm seeing,
oh yeah,
you're going to get a wedding invitation. And I know it'll read just like this because the person I'm going to marry is going to be like this, and she's 100% going to be on board. I'm hoping my cryptos will take care of all of it. And I'm going to, you're going to get an invite. It says,
that's fine.
join Sean and at this location, special guest, the Flaming Lips. I'm going to have the
All
Flaming
right,
Lips
yeah.
play my wedding.
That works.
There you go.
That's going to happen. That's where the money's going, and everybody I invite's going to have a
Bring
blast.
your own beer because
I'll
that's
get,
the money's
well,
going
I've
to
got
man,
the beer
right?
to bring.
Yeah, that's
there
right.
you go. Yeah.
Just run a pipe over from here. You know?
Oh, dude, we're brewing a special beer for anyone's wedding.
Yeah.
Like Lisa's. Oh, we got to do something.
We
fun.
got to do that.
Yeah.
Like that was Scott's bachelor party was like him and a bunch of like meat pilot brewing while they had the bachelor
here
party.
for that. The first time I was ever at Zauber was Scott's bachelor party,
God.
and you know what?
Man.
I bet on. All I remember is that the event room, which was filled with different tables at that time, and we were doing crab races. Some guy brought in a bucket of crabs with painted shells, like these crazy hermit crabs, and you just pour them out, and then you bet on which one crawls
Got out of the
across.
circle first.
It was a fun time. It's a fun thing to bet on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got to take a restroom break before I explode.
Yeah.
So, excuse me one second.
I mean, we could
wrap it up?
We're
We good?
officially done. We can
We are
wrap
done.
it up.
Good. All right.
Actually, let's take a couple minutes, not going into our reasons.
Okay.
But beers that are on tap but not in cans.
I can do that. Let me go think about this. Why I?
Are you going?
Yeah, I've got to go.
Okay.
There you go.
I'll be right back.
All right. So yeah. Okay. So
Sorry.
Our Irish Stout. I wore
Yeah, Flogging Molly.
Flogging Molly. So Flogging Molly, Devil's Dance Floor would be one of my picks for that. Or
Irish Stout. Or, oh man, what is it? It's Dropkick Murphys.
or I got
Yeah,
Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
Folsom Prison Blues.
Yeah.
That's a good one to drink stout to.
it is. Yeah.
And I had to bring it out. Unfortunately, yeah, because Sean's not here. So for the VAR that we were drinking, that was a tough one for me to figure out, like the ESB. But Hendrix Red House.
Yes. Yes.
That would be it. For the Goza, I got a whole album for that. Supertramp, Breakfast in America, and especially like Goodbye Stranger.
Yeah.
Great beer for that. We're killing time until Sean comes back.
Yeah.
I didn't come up with anything for the, and that's everything except for the Kolsch. I'm just staring into space.
Yeah.
Except for the Kolsch and the Code Switch, which are collab beers, and so I didn't have strong feelings about the collab beers that were mostly somebody else's recipe anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what all have you got?
Oh, I got some real. There used to be a radio program. The only way you could listen to this stuff. There used to be a radio program on a channel called Radio Luxembourg.
Okay.
It was just like a 208 on the AM band, faded in and out. It came from Luxembourg, and it was the only sort of American style program you had in the UK because the BBC didn't have any pop music. Oh. And this guy on Sunday night, he came on and he'd play blues. And this is a regular blues sampler. And look at these. And this is what we all listen to, these guys.
Lead Belly,
Yeah.
Jimmy Witherspoon,
Yeah.
Dr. Ross, Gary Davis, Big Joe Williams, Memphis Slim,
Yeah.
Sonny Terry, Jesse Fuller, Mabel Hillary, Blind Willie McTell, Scooper Blackwell, Lightning Hopkins. Yeah, wow.
So that's why, that's why you say, you kind of lean towards the Rolling Stones because that's where they got it from, this kind of stuff. This guy.
Oh, Chuck.
It's a
damn.
phenomenal following in the UK, you know? And he's the influence. He watched the Beatles, Rolling Stones. He was one of their main influences, no question.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What was I?
Fantastic.
We didn't talk about it earlier, but talking about my dancing, one of the interesting like stories, historical stories with that was that after like during or just after World War II, the experience of black GIs in the UK,
Yeah.
and just like how different it was for them, and
Yeah.
like talking about Lindy Hop, they were like, we're here and like this is so different from us. They're like we were hanging out with these girls
with these-
and teaching them how to do the Lindy Hop.
Hanging out with these white people.
Hang out with these white people who don't find this weird, and we're teaching them how to dance, and like this is so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and so they were teaching Lindy Hop to and sharing music with the young white people in the UK right after World War II,
yeah.
which they which they weren't able to do in the US.
Yeah.
So
Carrie's laughing. She's like, "You guys still going?"
We're
I'm like,
still
yeah,
going.
We
Yeah,
are.
of course
Yeah,
we
we
are.
are.
Hell we are.
we got this much longer to go.
It's music. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so my
Oh, that's great.
Rolling
oh man,
Stone.
you got those are both mono pressings.
This
huh?
is the original Rolling Stones' first album, Decca, 1963,
so
1964.
for the stout.
Oh, yeah,
And of course, Flogging Molly. This is why I've got the Flogging Molly
Flogging
t-shirt.
Molly.
And for the Goza,
Oh shit! You brought Supertramp. That's a great choice for the Goza.
Yeah.
Man, now I gotta. Okay, I'm gonna have to wing
gotta
this
up
on
your
a
game now.
whim
Yep.
with my my
and like for the people who are still watching, like for anybody who's not seen the cover of Breakfast in America, it's just one of the best covers ever.
Okay, since I have this right here and I could just drop it, I'm gonna reach over and grab
Yep.
Mr. Joe Tex,
Joe
one
Tex.
of the greatest R&B soul
Yep.
singers
Yeah.
to exist in American history. The Love You Save is going to be my song I'm going to just throw out for the Goza. But there's a song called You Need Me, Baby.
Yep.
1968. I love the fact you're familiar with it. But
Yep.
the story is just brilliant. It's a phenomenal... it's a story basically about like, oh, well, there's this guy. He was the best marble shooter as kids. Oh, in high school, he never played in a football game where he didn't score 5 touchdowns. Oh, there was a house fire. He ran in and saved all 7 people's lives. But you need a man, baby. You need me. Like, is the basic premise of the song. It's absolutely wonderfully written. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out for the Goza.
Yeah.
Why not?
Sweet.
For the stout, I'm going to go with something a little more, I guess, bold. I'm going to go with a band out of New York. The first band I ever went and saw. There's no relation to this beer. This is just something I'm thinking as I'm rolling. So I got my car right at my 16th birthday, day of. A week later, I drove with 3 of my friends to New York City. And my parents were like, yeah, sure, why not? And I saw a band called Les Savez Faves, which is one of the better punk bands to exist in the past, 30 years. But they're the last, in my opinion, the last great punk band. They're the last good punk band to exist. I hope somebody proves me wrong. The closest I would say is The Savages, which is a female punk band from Britain.
Okay.
They only had 2 albums. I don't think they're still around, but it's like a female Joy Division.
Ooh.
Oh, they're great. All female musicians called The Savages. I'll give you a copy of it. Their first album is called Silence Yourself, and that thing is brilliant. It's
Cool.
it's like a better female Joy Division. It's phenomenal.
Sweet.
But yeah, outside of them, Les Savez Faves is my last great punk band, and that was one of the first bands I drove anywhere out of state to see. So just throwing it out there.
Looked a little low here.
Oh, goodness.
Oh God.
Oh, just what I need, right?
Look at this guy.
Gotta get home. Thank you.
Can't have you sitting there dry.
Nice.
Anyway, so just
Yeah.
I don't. There's no direct correlation to the beer of any sort. I just went with the first thing I thought of in a story to it.
But for VAR, mine was Hendrix Red House.
Hendrix, yeah.
That's a phenomenal choice. You got to choose something amazing and classic and stand out for the VAR because that's my favorite thing personally.
I'm like just classic rock and roll, blues rock and roll. Like I was thinking Clapton, but Hendrix, Red House, just
Clapton and Hendrix together. Put those.
I'm going back with my King Crimson. I could choose a lot of other things, but you mentioned classic rock, like Frame by Frame, boom. Like that song has so much of me in it. I could go with a Grateful Dead song equally, like Moonlight or Midnight Moonlight, technically a cover, but Jerry Garcia band. Those two songs. Either of those, I have as much love for them as I do that beer. So, but Frame by Frame, that song's been with me since junior year. I have people associate that song with me. They'll send stuff to me, and it's an '80s King Crimson song. There's not much to relate to it to me except that
it's a great song.
It's a phenomenal, but it's my use when I teach students. I explain polyrhythms. With that is my example song. And I think it's the perfect example because you have 3/4 layered over 4/4, and every 12 bars it lines up to one rhythm.
Nice.
And that's essentially what a polyrhythm is. But
yeah. I've got it hiding back here if you want to hand me that. I brought this in not because I was pairing it with anything, but because it's at some point paired with literally all of these beers. Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here. The two, probably, possibly, I can't pick a favorite album.
I would have chose Metal or Obscured by Clouds.
No.
As weird as that is for me to choose of my Pink Floyd too. Dark Side of the Moon is Dark Side of the Moon, but I think Metal or Obscured by Clouds.
Well, Eddie, we're getting into weird things of back when I was brewing for Zauber and my feelings. Anyway, but of music I've listened to while brewing. For those wondering what I listen to when I'm brewing in the back, we have a weird eclectic mix. But what I've listened to most often is Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here, or Best of Sinatra. Capital, Sinatra, the Capital Years. That's what I listen to at 6 a.m. when I'm brewing beer.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I still listen to a lot of Sinatra. I listen to a lot of Elvis. I listen to a lot of things that
The classics are classic.
Yeah, it is.
For a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never mind. This can take me down a trip of music theory, not music theory, but
we're
rock music
already
history,
well over time.
But I feel like I want to hear a little bit more from you.
I think. Do we?
Sure.
Yeah, let's hear. So, I've got this much beer to go through, so all right.
I'll say, we had discussion about Beatles versus the Rolling Stones, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And these were the kind of things that
I knew that was a Chuck Berry. Before you pulled anything out, I just saw the cover and the feet, and I was like, "That's a Chuck Berry album."
I got this one actually in the secondhand bookstore on 5th, the Acorn, whatever it was before it closed.
Really?
Oh yeah, I missed that store.
We went in there. I went in there with Alex when it was about to close. They were doing clearance, and she was looking around at books and stuff. I came across this. I got this $5 or something. Double album.
Yeah.
Oh,
what a great collection.
Chuck Berry and all the classics. Okay, so that's one. Here's another one. Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee.
Okay, yeah, Gene Moore. I know Gene. It's sad that I know Gene more than the other people on there. But
Sonny Terry guitar. Brownie McGee on guitar and vocals. Sonny Terry on harmonica. Gene Moore on the drums. This is classic. This has got it's got Guitar Highway and all these.
I would love to listen to that.
Oh yeah, well we can work it out. There's another classic Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Oh.
Not one of their greatest, but it's got a.
It's original pressing.
But but it's got all the sort of again, it's classic R&B oriented kind of.
I'm trying to read. Is that writing up top? Is that like Japanese? Is that
No,
just
actually,
some sort of figures?
I think that's like semaphore. That's semaphore. That's my name, semaphore. Morse code. That's my name. I'm just doing things to.
Hey, that's cool. That's super cool.
Yeah, and then, there we go.
Abbey Road.
Abbey Road.
Abbey Road.
I like
The
for.
original Abbey Road. Look at that. There it is.
I seriously thought of like for my choice for one of them. I think for Altura, I'm like medley from Abbey Road. Medley from Abbey Road. Like no, I can't. I don't like. That's too perfect. I can't think that high. Like
You have to brew the perfect beer for that.
yeah, I've got to brew the perfect beer.
You gotta do
to
better, Cameron.
pair
Yeah.
with the medley from Abbey Road.
You've got to
Hey, I like
raise
that
your
you have
game.
something. Yeah, you have something to strive for.
I do.
Yeah.
Do better.
Yeah,
Brew
I
better.
know.
But I was showing this one.
Like I feel bad enough being like, Zeppelin and Steely Dan.
Honestly, Zeppelin can easily be overrated. If you want me to dig in on that, like, oh man, the guitar solos. I'm like, yeah, they're all major pentatonic. They're rather simplistic. They're not that badass. They really are overrated. I mean, like, when I get, if you want to go music theory on stuff, like, oh, King Crimson, way better technical band than, but like, so when you say your beer is like Zeppelin, you're like, oh, it's like, maybe they're a little overrated. Don't think you have to, have the greatest beer on earth. Just make it a great beer. Good.
I mean, for guitar, like I like Floyd more than Zeppelin for guitar solos.
I do all day long.
Well,
David Gilmour. Oh, dude, live at Pompeii.
Yeah.
Live at Pompeii is brilliant.
Well, and also because it's so different too, and technically, Martin Knopfler on those albums like Alchemy and Sultans of Swing, and those, so good. I mean, just the sort of sound, the sound environment he provides for the band.
It's like
beautiful.
You said sound environment. I think of like some of Phil Spector's work, despite how he could be remembered as a human. Like
The Wall of Sound, right?
What was the album he did with Tina and Ike Turner? The High Road,
River
Valleys.
Deep, Mountain High. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That is a brilliant album, and it's more about Tina.
Yeah.
Because Phil Spector was like, back away, Ike. Like, get the fuck out of here.
This is where the voice is.
Yep. And he knew. And that album really preceded what would end up being Tina's fame at, like 55 selling out, like, arena, something nobody'd ever accomplished. And, I mean, so it's hard for me because I love her rhythm and blues singing. Like, when I hear Tina Turner sing sweet soul music, I forget Arthur Conley wrote it. Like, that is, her voice is so good. Yeah. But you can't get away from Ike during those years, and I hate him. What most people don't know, Ike is sort of credited with creating the first rock album ever.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, it's called it was under the Rockets, I think.
Yeah,
something like that. Again, my memory, there's too much in my brain to dig through, but I think it was like the Rockets is what it was released under, but it is recognized in 1955 as the first actual rock album. Wow. Maybe 54.
There's a track I came across on YouTube. And it's.
I'm gonna stop you all real quick because we're gonna keep talking, but we're coming up on 7:00, so we'll give this an official ending for 7:00, and it was supposed to be an hour and a half. We've made it 2 hours. Yeah. We're having fun. Any final words for the last before we sign off?
For rock and roll.
Hooray for rock and roll.
Go. Everyone, our millions of listeners,
and both of our listeners,
see live music and support your live music and support your local venues, not your big guys, not your arenas, not your
Natalie's coal-fired pizzas.
You're small, even smaller. Anywhere from, I don't even know if Double Happiness is still around, like down over in the Brewery District. your Double Happiness, your Tree Bar, all of your venues that keep these amazing little gems coming through and keeping us a hub of indie music. Yeah. Go out and support them and get them some cash flow.
I think that's what to leave things on. So,
Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for. I mean, or should it be lady and gentleman?
Maybe, if you're lucky.
Maybe. So, lady and gentleman, thank you for enjoying us for this extra long 2 hours of Endeavor BS. We're going to keep talking music, geeking out like the hipsters that we have established ourselves to be. So come on by Endeavor. I'm gonna compile our list of picks into a playlist to share with folks, and support.
Good night. So long.
So long. Farewell. Auf Wiedersehen. Okay. All right. And go support your local and as the dark days pass us, go out and support your local live music venues and support the up-and-coming artists.
Sounds like a great way to sign off.
All right.
Yeah.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.